I was a 14-year veteran of the LAPD. My last 5 years, I was essentially working Skid Row, and during the height of the pandemic, during the George Floyd civil unrest, I was that officer that was standing on the front lines in my helmet and gear, but I was also that officer that was standing on the front lines during the very beginning of the pandemic. Very quickly, I had kind of seen through the smoke screen of it, you know, and I'm not here to do any conspiracy type things, but I wasn't seeing exactly what they were reporting on the news. And so what I had always told my kids is that if at any time you ever fear something, let's learn about it and dispel that fear. So that's what I started to do. I started learning all I could about what they were releasing. And what I learned very quickly was that if I wanted to know the science behind it, I had to follow the silenced, right? Doctors like Peter McCullough, right? Doctors like Robert Malone, Dr. Emanuel, Dr. Gold, right? And so I started following them, and I became very quickly entrenched with Dr. Rainer Fullmike, who's a lawyer out of Germany, and he has what's called the Corona Council. What I had started to do was question the information that was being put out by the LA County Department of Public Health, the CDC, and I was making my own determinations, right? As a police officer, we're natural detectives. We question everything, right? We gather facts and we make determinations, and I started to make my own determination as to what I was doing. I realized, you know, the masking wasn't working. I realized that I didn't want to test and I didn't want to vaccinate. So in late August of last year, the LA City came out with the mandates saying that it was now a condition of employment that you were to be vaccinated. In my heart, I knew that I wasn't going to do it. You know, at any point I could have said, "Oh, maybe I'll do a religious exemption," but it goes against every moral fiber that I have to sort of bear false witness when I knew I wasn't going to cooperate with that. And so I refused to submit a religious exemption. I refused to mask. And when they brought me into the captain's office on November 3rd, they presented me with a piece of paper that says, as a condition of your employment, we're going to deduct $600 a month out of your paycheck to pay for PCR testing. And I said, absolutely not. I will not acquiesce to that. And I wrote in big letters, I will not acquiesce to these mandates. And as a result of it, that was the last day that I worked. They brought me in 2 days later, forced me to turn in my gun, turn in my badge, and then they put me on trial within the department for 7 months. On December 6th of last year, I started my trial, and on July 1st, I was terminated from my employment. They told me that I possibly put millions of Angelinos and tens of thousands of my fellow police officers at risk, that I was breaking the law and I was flaunting everything that I stood for. You know, but at that time, I had also co-founded a medical freedom coalition that I'm very proud of, and I stood my ground. I stood for my principles. You know, on March 15th of this past year, we filed a federal lawsuit against the city of LA. It was just heard in federal court. 90% of it was thrown out, but we were allowed to proceed with a First Amendment violation. So we are the only group that has gone that far. So we just filed our amended complaint just this past week, and I'm really truly proud of that. But that's what really led me into the politics. Is I had the incredible honor to speaking of tens of thousands of people throughout the Southern California area. You know, Los Angeles, we had a lot of big rallies. Santa Monica, San Diego, a lot of churches out in that area as well. And I was honored to be one of the VIP speakers at the Defeat the Mandates rally in April of this year down in Graham Park.
And that was tens of thousands of people.
That was, yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, that was. And it was broadcast all over the world, and I'm humbled by it. But while I was giving those speeches, I kept calling on, at the time I was saying the men of this country. I was calling on, where were the patriotic men of this country? Somebody who could stand up and say, you know what, enough is enough. I've had it. And when nobody was answering the call, I really had to do some internal searching and say, do I want to get into this? Because I was already on trial and I knew I was going to be fired, but I knew that this was a hill that I would die on. So I I stepped up on March 7th, I think it is. I pulled my papers to run for office. I had turned in all the work on that Friday, so I had like 4 days to collect all my signatures. One of the funny things is that because of the redrawing of the lines of the districts within California, I missed getting on the ballot. Mm-hmm. So I had 24 names stricken off. But one of the important things was that if it was important enough for me to run in the first place, running as a writing candidate is just as important, right? We have to stand for something. It was 14 years ago. I held my hand up and I swore an oath to the Constitution of the United States, and I take that very seriously. Right? Not a lot of people are doing that any longer, and I am that man that will stand in the gap, take the slings and arrows, and fight for our Constitution. So, fast forward, the primaries are here, and by God's grace is 2,580 write-in votes, which some of you were responsible for, Mr. Buchanan. 2,580, maybe the top write-in vote candidate of any assembly member running for this year. And I was only second in the state to overall write-in votes. Christina Irwin was the only one that beat me out. I think she got like 6,900, which is amazing. Yeah. But what do I stand for? I always say I stand for family, for freedom, and accountability, right? I'm the father of 2 small boys, 7 and 8 years old. They are the only people that I truly will answer to. I am beholden to no one except my own kids, right? Because at any point I could have taken them and their mom and said, you know what, we're running away from California. I could have gone anywhere else I wanted to, but that's not the kind of man that I am. Like I said before, I took an oath to the Constitution, and I firmly believe that California is the place where we save America. Because where California goes, like I said to you gentlemen back there, like where California goes, so does the rest of the country. In Washington, D.C., all of the top leaders are from California. So wherever this election goes, you can be rest assured it's going to travel east to the Capitol. I'm running against Chris Holden in Assembly 41 here. It starts here up into the La Cañada, Flint Ridge area, and then it travels east along the 210 freeway into Monrovia, San Dimas, Laverne, Upland, parts of Rancho Cucamonga, and it's even going up into the high desert now, up into Oak Hills, Pinyon Hills, and Gila. Huge district. And a lot of people are complaining about so many things as to what's happening within this region. We are dealing with so many failed Democrat policies of the last 30, 40 years. We have had Democrat control over the last 60. So many 60.
Yeah, at least over 60 years.
Yeah. I think I explained to you. I've only lived in the States since 2008. I traveled. I was born and raised in Boston, Massachusetts. I came out here for the sole purpose of being an LAPD officer. It hurts my heart deeply that it has to come to this point, but here we are. There's nothing I can do. I can't change. I would not change one single decision that I've made thus far, right? Because it's put me here in front of you, and I wish there was more people here as well. But I'm so grateful for you guys for showing up. So I'm running against Chris Holden, sort of a legacy politician within this area. His father was mayor here in Pasadena. Chris was city council member here, and I think he served as a mayor for a term, maybe pro tem. But we're looking at a state of our state that's deteriorating so rapidly, that's causing men like me, Bert Blank, who I also formed a coalition with, we'll call it the Heroes Coalition, and Vincent Sy, who's running the Senate 22. Three police officers that stood up and said enough is enough. Like I alluded to earlier, we stand by the Constitution. And so we're running against this powerhouse that's in Sacramento. What do I want to do? I'm not looking to reinvent the wheel. I'm looking to restore balance back to California as a whole. Somebody said to me last night, "Oh, if you get up there, just vote no on everything." And it's like, it's kind of got to be that way. I mean, who knows what 22 is going to look like? Who knows who's going to be in there? But I often refer to it like the people that get up there in 22 we're setting the stage for 4, 6, and 8. Right, we're like the Scout Sniper Patrol. Yes, I am going to vote no on a lot of things, but some of the most problematic things that we have is we have this gigantic rise in crime, like I was telling you guys in the back earlier. But that's directly related to it started with AB 109 and then proceeded into Prop 47, Prop 57. The public was led to believe that it's just it's a crime reduction sort of initiative, and I think what happened is people were seeing that, oh my God, we've got so many people incarcerated in the state, it's really a black eye on us. Well, let's just decriminalize everything and move it into misdemeanors. And all of a sudden, whoosh, all of our felonies drop to misdemeanors, and now we're not such a dangerous state any longer. But it's dangerous in the fact that at the time of arrest, whether you could have a serial burglar or a rapist or something of that nature, but if they get arrested for a misdemeanor crime at that time, they're released very soon afterwards, and that's problematic. And you see that in our neighborhoods. We've got bulletins coming out of Los Angeles says the Los Angeles Police Department, we have to protect you. Stop wearing flashy jewelry. Stop going out at night. Be careful. When your own police department is putting out these public service announcements, it's hardly public service at that point. But when they're putting out these announcements that we can't protect you, that's problematic for everyone. And we're seeing the huge spike in crimes. We have a decriminalized drug system. We have a district attorney who unfortunately just survived a recall and who does not want to prosecute crimes. So where does that leave us? It leaves us again beholden to the people in power. And those people in power definitely do not have our interests in mind. And that's why I wanted to run, because I took a stand so that I can leave a country for where my children will still be able to. I took a stand, right, hoping that me stepping forward, it would strengthen the spines of others. I want to be that person that inspires others to take a stand with me and stand shoulder to shoulder. One of the other things I want to do is hold these people accountable. The consequences of the last 3 years has been so debilitating on us as a society. The party that pushed to destroy our economy, burn our paychecks, inflation out of control, didn't want you to see your dying relatives, right? Held you back from going to funerals, masked you up, injected you, forced you to make decisions that you would never have made before. But here we are, midterms approaching. Now they want you to forget. Gavin Newsom is going to be gracious, and give you $1,000 back next in coming October, just before the election. They want you to forget what they've done to us for the last 3 years. They want you to forget what they've done to us, like you had alluded to, for the last 60 years.
Yeah.
Right? We keep voting these people into office. If we keep going, what is it? Einstein says the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different outcome. Right? And that's what's happening.
Oh yeah.
These people, they're up in Sacramento. They're not listening to the will or the voice of the people. They're listening to the outside interests, the people that hold the checks in front of their faces. It's all carrot with no stick with these guys. So I want to get up there and hold them accountable, because at no point has anyone really done that. And my opponent, in the 10 years that he's been up in the assembly, he has only voted against the Democrats one time, and that I could find. That one time was a magazine bill for firearms. He voted no against the Democrats only so he could vote yes on a bill that was more restrictive to the magazines. And just recently, I started writing down a lot of the stuff that Chris has been voting yes on. This is since I've been involved in politics, and again, I am not a politician, but since I've been involved in this since March, I've been paying so close attention to what's happening. And Jennifer will attest, I go up to Sacramento on my own dime, and I lobby against these bills. I'll go over in the swing building is where all the legislators sit now, and I will go and knock on 60 doors. And I will confront our legislators in the rotunda of the state assembly, which is what I did with Chris Holden, one of the most important bills that I believe, because I'm a strong proponent for parents' rights. You know, as a dad of 2 young boys, I want to keep my boys and I want to raise them the way that I see fit. And I look to raise men. I want strong, confident, capable men who will make good decisions, but I'm there to guide them. That is my sole purpose in life, right? My sole purpose is to raise these confident, capable men. Now, Chris Holden, on the other hand, has been voting yes to all these. Has anyone been paying attention to the bills?
Yeah.
I know Jen has,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But if I could read a couple of them to you guys, I mean, right now, parental rights are being stripped away.
Yeah.
We have AB 329. It's the graphic sexual education of children, and it's self-pleasure with vegetables, things of that nature that our children are being taught in 2nd grade. I think it starts.
appalling. Yeah.
It is absolutely
in
insane.
any other context, it would be child abuse.
Exactly. Thank you, Jen. AB 2218, which is the Trans Wellness and Equity Fund, right? So our taxpayer dollars are going to fund trans programming amounting to ideological indoctrination in the form of trans-inclusive best practices and educational materials. Our taxpayer dollars are going to fund this trans movement. AB 1084 removes gender from department stores. So there's no longer a boys or a girls section. It's an all-inclusive section. AB 439, it's the Gay, Bi, Trans, and Queer Pupil Resources and Training, which encourages schools to bypass parents' rights and promote the agenda of trans. It promotes the agenda of I think it's killing me. One of these ones, 2943, Assembly Bill 2943. It restricts the medical providers from performing orientation change efforts with patients under the age of 18 years old. So if a young boy or a young girl comes into the doctor's office and I feel like I'm in the wrong body, you know, there was a time where a doctor could say, you know what, well, let's talk further about this. Let's get some counseling and see where the root cause is. Now doctors are no longer able to do that. If the boy feels like he's in a different body, now the doctor just has to straight out accept that and can no longer offer any services to anyone under the age of 18. One of the most grotesque ones is 1184. It allows a 12-year-old to make their own medical decisions with regards to abortion and cross-sex hormones while using the parent's insurance, and the parent has no notification that that's happening. Isn't that insane? Do I want to? No. Do you want to pay for that?
No, that's
okay.
crazy. Oh my God. I don't understand why parents are not fighting this themselves.
They don't know about it. They don't know about it. Right now, the city of Los Angeles has a plan with Planned Parenthood to put 50 abortion clinics on high school campuses. Planned Parenthood.
To have Planned Parenthood outlets on LAUSD campuses. And there's that other bill, Mike, that you know, where they're trying to create health centers. They're trying to turn all California schools into health centers that are going to provide medical and behavioral services to children on campus, really without parental consent or knowledge. And that's going to include immunizations.
Jennifer Kennedy, for everybody, is
Hello,
the legal
hello.
eagle
Hi,
for
I'm
AM 870.
I'm a local attorney, and
Yes.
Michael and I have been in touch for a long time.
Right.
And I was up there lobbying with him in Sacramento because we're fighting these anti-parent, really bad bills. And that's exactly what Chris Holden votes yes on all of them.
Every single one.
Yeah.
Every single one. And one of the, you know, and to even SB 866, which is actually still up
Yes.
for debate, it's Senator Scott Wiener's bill, which is going to allow. Initially, it was 12-year-olds, but now through the pressure of people lobbying and the lack of votes, he amended it to allow 15 and older the ability to medically emancipate themselves and get vaccines. And it's just, it encourages the kids to lie to their parents. If John wants to play football next year, but he can't because, hey, you don't have a vaccine, well, he can go to any CVS, Walgreens, optometrist, a donut shop, anywhere that's authorized. But it's true, and he can get a vaccine without having to tell his parents. Now, the problematic thing with that bill is, number one, Chris voted yes for the amendment. I have him on record saying he's going to abstain from the vote.
Right.
But we'll see what happens come next week. The legislative session ends on August 31st, so I'll be up there for that to see if he does hold true to his word. But is anyone familiar with the VAERS system, the Vaccine Adverse Effects Reporting System? There's also the Vaccine Compensation Fund. A 15-year-old cannot file a claim with the compensation fund. So only an adult 18 years of older or older can file a claim. So that 15-year-old that lied to mom and dad, withheld the information, didn't know his previous history, what he may have been allergic to as a baby or some sort of adverse effect. If that 15-year-old goes in, gets that vaccine, and suddenly has heart palpitations or, God forbid, myocarditis, they now have to suffer for 3 years before they can do that, right? So it's problematic all around. And did I miss anything?
No,
yeah.
I mean, it's a horrible problem.
And one of the most...
Yeah, and then of course, are you going to talk about 1479 that Holden just voted?
How many do you want me to talk about? There's literally 600 of them.
There's just so many.
Yeah, 1479 was just passed this week, the other day, and I was shocked because not only with the CDC quietly bowing out for the monkeypox or some other climate change issues, they changed all of their guidance. But Senator Richard Pan introduced this bill early this year, which was going to create a digital database for children to constantly test for COVID-19. Problematic? Yes, absolutely. Because what do they do with that genetic data that they collect? They sell it off to third parties, right? They data mine it. It was one of the issues that as a police officer, I was very concerned with Pedram Salampur and his no-bid contract awarding ended up making him $6 million from the city of Los Angeles. But he was essentially data mining all of the city employees' genetic material. Sheriff Alex Villanueva was very vocal about the whole genetic data mining of his employees with Fulgent Technologies, which he was warned early this year was in close contact with the Chinese Communist Party. So all of our genetic data is being sold off to these companies that are just using it, and I don't want to get too much into that part. I mean, there's a whole lot that
I was going to say, Mike, that's like, you don't even have to look at that part. If you look at the just perpetual COVID testing of our children in the schools.
Yes.
And they just signed off on that, including Chris Holden, even after the CDC literally came out and said, we need to stop all this asymptomatic testing.
Right.
We're going to stop. And that includes kids. What is our legislature doing, signing off on that and sending $1 billion annually to our schools? It's pretty much money laundering, if you ask me.
It is, because it's creating all these nonprofits
and forcing our children to still be tested in the schools when even the CDC says
right. But meanwhile, 2098 is still going to be voted on again, which is going to take which will take the medical license of doctors if they promote the misinformation with regards to COVID-19. So that's still on the floor, and actually Chris I think he did vote yes on that one initially. Mm-hmm. Yep. So lastly, one of the most egregious ones, and it bothers me as a former police officer, was SB 145. Well, actually, SB 145, it's the sex offender registration. Chris Holden voted yes on it. Anyone familiar with the Hannah Tubbs incident that happened in LA last year? Or actually, it was a little more than a year ago. Tubbs was, at the time, 17 years and 355 days old. He sexually molested a 10-year-old girl in the bathroom of a restaurant. DA George Gascon, with the help of SB 145, said, well, he was only a juvenile at the time. Hannah Tubbs has since transitioned to now being a woman, and George Gascon sentenced a 28-year-old man, to 2 months in a juvenile facility as a result of SB 145 passing. Hannah Tubbs right now is being held up in Kern County on 2 additional counts of murder and 3 more sexual molestations of children. But it's insane what's happening, because my opponent, the Democrat Party, they vote for these bills that are destroying the family unit. They're voting for bills that remove the parental rights, and they're voting for these bills that keep not only Assembly 41 unsafe, but it's keeping all of California unsafe. So, like I had said, I'm not looking to reinvent the wheel. I want to go up there and install a sense of normalcy, sanity. You know, I want to be a voice of reason up there. But it's going to take. I can't do anything without your help, Danielle, and your help. We need to have the civic engagement of Pasadena, the entire district, the entire state. As Republicans, we've had such a low turnout because I think that we have been beaten down so much in this state. You know, we keep supporting, as I've been calling them lately, is these milk-soft candidates. These candidates who they may say a couple of nice things and then they disappear. I have skin in this game. I just sacrificed 14 years of law enforcement, the only job that I've ever wanted to do in my life, the job that I worked so hard to get, that I moved 3,000 miles across the country to get. I sacrificed that because my principles, right? Sometimes it's easier to fight for your principles than it is to stand up for them. But I've done both. I am the man that can get to Sacramento, and I will speak out, and I will uphold your voice and your voice and your voice, right? You know, if we continue to fight for what we hate, we'll fail every time. But instead, what I like to think of is if we fight for what we love, right? My kids, America, freedom, the state, whatever comes to your mind. If we fight for what we love, we'll flourish. And that's what I'm doing. I'm fighting for what I love. I'm fighting for what I want to see my boys grow up to. So, thank you for coming out here. I appreciate you listening. And
Michael, I have a question. It's just kind of personal background. What drew you to LA for the LAPD out of Boston? You know, Boston's kind of cool, and
Boston's awesome.
What was it that drew you out here?
Opportunity.
Uh-huh.
The opportunity. I had a cousin who was on the department already, and he came back east. He said, "Hey man, why don't you, you know?" He put the bug in my ear because at the time, you know, I'm 46, so I graduated college in 1998, and that whole time I was trying to get on back east, and it just wasn't happening. The class sizes were so small, and then 9/11 happened. I went for NYPD. NYPD at the time, back in 2001, they were only making $22,000 a year, and you had to live within one of the 5 boroughs. And then I went and did the FDNY, and I took their test, and I was like, yes, that's so good. There was just so many of us, I never got a call back. So, you know, I started working for a district attorney's office. I was bartending. I ran a bar for about 10 years. I worked for a district attorney's office that dealt with the pedophile priests of the Boston Archdiocese. That was really hard. But you know, I never lost that drive to become a police officer. And so when the opportunity presented itself, okay, you know, I had to do. It was at the time. It was one of the most selfish decisions I'd ever made. I left everything I knew, and I drove 3,000 miles to fulfill my dream. And so that's what finds me here. You know. Thanks, Jennifer. Dennis, you had a question.
Yeah, and in the 14 years of your PD experience, is something that helps you to become a better assemblyman?
If 14 years of experience, if it's taught me anything, it's how to listen. It's how to listen, how to problem solve. You know, the critical thinking police officer, the critical thinking man or woman, they're almost going the way of the dinosaur right now. You know, it's almost a sin to have your own independent thoughts in 2022. But I mean, we have to hang on to that. You know, over the course of my time within the department, I was fortunate. I was named Officer of the Year in 2011. My perseverance, my drive, you know, I approached every day that I was a police officer as if I was the Officer of the Year. You know, and it wasn't an ego thing, but I really took a lot of pride in my job. It's other than being a father, it's the best job that I've ever had in my life. And every day that I was able to serve the people of Los Angeles was it was such an honor and such a humbling experience. I keep using that word humble a lot during this campaign because I'm constantly humbled in everything that I do.
You were given the Mothers Against Drunk Driving Award.
Yes, I won the Mothers Against Drunk Driving Award 5 years in a row, and that's for, I think I left the department with about 800 or 900 DUI arrests over the course of my career. That was powerful. You know, I mean, you see it because I was a collision investigator for 5 years, and you know, you see the effects that a lack of accountability, which is what I was getting back to. The lack of accountability in our society shows. I mean, I've arrested a lot of drunk people, and you know, everybody makes mistakes. Good people make mistakes all the time, and I don't hold anything against them on that. But you know, I've seen dead children, I've seen bodies, and I've seen a lot more than the average person deserves to. So, yeah, the accountability is where we get back to that as well. You know, in Sacramento, the lack of accountability up there needs to be accounted for. We need to audit Sacramento so hard that they need to pay for it. Well, when I say pay, they need to be held accountable for their actions, and somebody needs to get up there and do it. So,
among all the offices that you can run, why assembly office versus Senate or different positions in the city?
Yeah, no, you know, I chose the assembly, well, because Anthony Portantino isn't up for a re-election until 24. So, you know, the assembly position is every 2 years, and that's why I chose to run against Chris Holden. You know, it's within my district. I live in Upland, and Upland is within Assembly 41, and that's why I chose to run for the assembly. Danielle?
How has your message resonated with independents? Because as a law and order, individual, I mean, you're a former policeman. I mean, does that message resonate with them?
It does, but you know, you're never going to get a candidate that you 100% agree on, right? Well, we all have a message that we can all agree with at some point, right? People may not agree with my stance on drugs, but they can agree with my stance on, let's say, you know, mandates or water. You know, water is a big thing that I actually didn't even touch on, and I had started to talk to you guys in the back. You know, one of the mismanagements of Sacramento, and I'll get back to your, but one of the mismanagements of Sacramento is that during Jerry Brown's administration, you know, we had Proposition 1 that was passed in 2014, and it allocated $8.8 billion to shore up the infrastructure of our water system. And, you know, fast forward almost 10 years now, not one new dam, not one desal plant, not one project of SB1 has been completed. And now we find ourselves faced with the severe drought that is entirely party made, right? It's not the Republican issues, but it's the people who are in power, and that is entirely their fault. That is on them. You know, a lot of people don't understand is that residential water usage makes up less than 10% of the water wasted. 40% of that goes to agriculture, and the other 50% is pure water wastage. You know, dumping trillions and trillions of gallons a day into the bay, which it was San Francisco Bay, right? Yeah, for the 3-inch delta smelt, right? How is that helping anyone? And you know, we have to get these Democrat appointed commissioners on those boards. We've got to replace them because they are just beholden to the Democrat Party. And you know, it's all of California that I look to represent. It's not Republicans, it's not people with R's or D's next to their name. This is a California issue. It's not a party issue. So, did I answer all of your questions? Mm-hmm. Thanks.
Talking about water, that it's been all drained up onto the San Francisco Bay. Why is that? And did they have an explanation about that?
It's to fight to keep a 3-inch fish from going extinct. A fish that's not even on the endangered list, I believe. So it's wasteful. It's just waste.
They don't have a better way to preserve them versus to drain all our water.
They're dumping trillions of gallons of water into the San Francisco Bay.
Wow.
To save that. Yeah.
Wow. So they're choosing them over us. Not that they're not valuable, but that's how they're
looking at it. I mean, that's my best. If anybody has any further information on that, yeah, absolutely.
Well, actually, so I have to say these are unconfirmed reports that are on social media, except these are actual video clips of actual dams. So last year there was some unannounced and unexplained emptying of reservoirs where the residents, those who live next to the dam, reported that the gates have been open and the water's just pouring out of these dams,
right? Not
for any particular reason.
Right.
There's no explanation. There's no coverage of that.
Right.
So that's deliberate emptying of the reservoirs for no reason other than to cause a water shortage.
But why are we not dredging our dams right now as well? The dam that's up here in Pasadena.
Right.
Why are we not dredging that out? Right, and that we need to get the engineers union up there and give them that contract to dredge that dam.
Yeah, because as low as it is now, it's the perfect time
exactly
to pursue that.
Exactly. Anybody else? Dennis. Oh, did you have a question, ma'am?
Oh yeah, I just wanted if you can touch on the homeless, in Pasadena, and what you would be doing to help that.
Yeah, I called it. It's like a 10-headed hydra. Mm-hmm. The homelessness it's a problem that's not going to be solved. And I won't make you any promises to say that I will solve homelessness, but it's so problematic. What I want to do is repeal 47, 57, and AB 109. We have to start holding the criminality aspect. I mean, not everyone is homeless by choice, right? Mm-hmm. I understand there are certain circumstances. I might even be homeless pretty soon. I haven't worked in almost a year, right? But the criminality aspect of it is because we've decriminalized drugs, because the police departments within our state are so tied down and worried about optics, right? How it's going to look to the public. They're tied down with lawsuits from homeless rights advocates that we can't do anything about it any longer. And we're essentially we're a no bail city, or we're a no bail county, so that people that commit crime within our county are let out relatively almost immediately. And then you have the readily available, the beautiful sun, the beautiful weather that we have up here, and now with SB 57 that was signed, or it's going to be signed into law, I'm sure. Scott Wiener wrote a bill that's going to allow for testing sites for narcotics, heroin, fentanyl, cocaine, crack. People are going to be safely able to smoke it within our county. San Francisco County, the City of Oakland, and the County of Los Angeles are all pilot programs. So homelessness might increase, I'm afraid to say, in these areas, because we're going to have now residents who are addicts coming to these areas now because it's going to be safe and, in essence, legal for them to do drugs. So this is something that we really need to change. We have to get more involved. If you don't want more homeless in Pasadena, you have to get involved. You have to get your neighbor involved, and then that neighbor has to get that neighbor involved, and then you have to go all the way down the street. Because as a candidate, I can't do anything unless people get involved and put me into office. Mm-hmm. Understand? Mm-hmm. So that's the most important thing for you to remember, is if you want to change, it has to start with you. You have to help me so that I can in turn help you, right? Because I represent the voice of you. That's all I'm up there to do. Use my common sense, use my morals, that will guide me, but ultimately it's the voice of the people of Pasadena, the voice of the people of Upland, Monrovia, whom I answer to, right? I'm here to do what you tell me to. I'm only leasing that chair for 2 years, right? At the end of those 2 years, if I did a good enough job, maybe you'll let me do another 2. But I'm there to do your will, right? A vote for me is essentially a voice for you.
How long has Chris Holden been having he's in that chair?
Chris has been he's been there for 10 years. This will be his last election.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, there's a limit?
Yeah, you're only allowed 12 years or 6
Too
terms.
many.
Yeah.
Yeah.
About your hero coalition,
Yes.
it's 3 members right now.
Yes, I formed a coalition of other like-minded individuals made up of, currently it's myself, Burton Brink, who's running for the Assembly in the 49th District, and then Vincent Tsai, who's running in the 22nd Senate District. So,
And is it going to be like expanding the member?
is it good?
Will get a chance? Like,
Yes,
to
absolutely.
Get more members.
I would love to add more members to our coalition. You know, we called ourselves the Heroes Coalition, you know, because as a police officer, there's nothing I hate being called more than a hero, right? It's weird. It feels weird, but people respond to it. You know, I look at Burton, I look at Vincent, and I think they're heroes. You know, and perhaps they look at me in the same way. But yeah, I would love to add more people to that coalition. Military, people who serve, right? I mean, I've spent the better part of my adult life serving others, and I respect those who serve. So yeah, I would like to add to the
So
the
people
coalition.
who want to join doesn't have to be running for office. All they want to join as long as they are like veteran, former.
Sure. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Public service. Oh, okay.
Thanks, Dennis.
Any other questions for Mike?
Just one comment. You mentioned the 2014 water bill
Yes, ma'am.
bond. There was a bond that went through the end of the 90s too for water.
Yes.
Parks and water. Whatever happened?
Yeah. Yeah. And if
You know,
remember,
they keep asking for money, but we never see any action.
Right. We've got, we've got the bullet train to nowhere. You know, costing billions and billions of dollars. And you know, that 2014 initiative was the cheaper version, if you remember. I think they initially asked for over $11 billion for water, and Jerry Brown said that's just unsustainable. Can't give you $11 billion, but we'll give you 8, and still nothing has happened. So, yeah, thank you. Anybody else?
Piggybacking on the data mining from China, they data mine everything from your Zoom calls, the conference, your drones, your dash cams, the door bell that has the camera hookup, any part, any in the production line that has Chinese manufacturer, your data is out there.
Yeah.
And
I don't know if anybody saw, but the Biden administration just partnered with TikTok
Oh yeah.
to monitor our elections. Unbelievable. I can't stress enough. Do not mail in your votes.
Yes.
Deliver your vote to the polling place. Do it in person. Because there is no telling how deep. I mean, historically, Los Angeles County has been one of the most corrupt, or has been the most corrupt county in terms of voting. You know, as we've seen in previous elections, and even with the county registrar's office, right? You know, with the Gascon recall. So please deliver your ballot in person and surrender your mail-in.
Yes.
Or shred.
Or shred.
I have that argument, like every election of whether you have to do it. What people don't want to see is their ballots that they don't have any intention of using being misused somewhere. But you don't have to surrender. You shred it at home. If you want. You don't have to turn it in. So many people get so worried. No, you can just keep it at home as long as you know where it is.
Yeah.
Like my husband did not ever get his ballot, even though they kept sending and I kept requesting. Anyway, but the big point is to vote. A lot of people are so pissed off about the fraud or they're worried about it that then they just don't vote, and that can be part of the problem for some of the Republican turnout. So
That's the problem. I think you get the government that you vote for, or that you don't vote for. And if you don't vote, you have no reason to complain.
how can we help you? How can each one of us do?
Well, you can find more information on me on McMahon, the number 4assembly.com. what I'm looking for currently is I need help. I need volunteers. I need people that will walk precincts, that will go door to door dropping off material. But I also, unfortunately, I need donations. Donations essentially is what carries a campaign, and it allows me to pay for these yard signs, for palm cards, for advertising on billboards and things of that nature. So, you know, I ask for your time, I ask for your donations, and if you can, I'll ask for both. And then hopefully that we can get out there and make a change in November. Thank you.